friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Han and I'm an embroidery artist. I mostly work on shoes, but today I'm working on this Emilia dress from Flor. I recently did a giveaway collaboration with them and the winner of that giveaway chose this dress for me to embroider onto, and today I'm going to show you the process. Firstly, I just want to say how cute all of the packaging is that they use at Flor. It really feels like you're opening like a Christmas present or something whenever you open one of their packages. This dress is such a lovely creamy linen colour, so I wanted to use more of a neutral colour scheme, and as always I will have all of the supplies that I used linked in the description of this video. If you want to try this project yourself at home, I definitely recommend using an embroidery hoop. It just keeps the fabric more taut when you're working and it makes the embroidery more neat in the end, because when you work on thinner fabric it can be easy for the fabric to pucker and distort underneath the thread if you pull too hard or something like that. The first stitch I'm going to go in with is just several kind of inch long straight stitches. I guess they could also be considered like inch long back stitches. I do 3 of those all the way down to like the waist hem of the dress, because I kind of want it to look like there's flowers growing up from the waist. Sounds kind of weird, but bear with me. I then go back in on this stem and I make a bunch of little anchor stitches. I don't know why, I just have always preferred to use this method rather than a bunch of smaller back stitches or straight stitches. Once I'm happy with the amount of anchors I've put in, I then go back to the top of the stem and start to weave the needle through each of those anchor stitches. This kind of gives the stem like a 3D effect, makes it stand out from the fabric a little bit, and it also makes the stitching look much more seamless, as if it is really a stem. I'm going to add 2 kind of bulky-ish leaves to the bottom of this stem, and I add about 6 or 7 straight stitches, all kind of like bunched in the same place. I'm going to go in and add like a little offshoot off of this stem for another little flower to be growing right there. I'm going to show you exactly how I tie off and secure my thread. I just loop it within the inside stitches a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I make 2 knots. I always get asked if I back my stitches with anything, and honestly, if you tie them off properly, you don't need to back your stitches with anything, even in shoes. And this dress that's going to be worn by the giveaway winner, these stitches will hold with this method. So I repeat the same method for the other 2 stems that I'm doing in this same colour. I'm kind of varying the heights because I want a little bit of variation. I think it makes it look more realistic. So I've done 1 smaller stem and then another slightly larger stem on the other side with an offshoot. And now it's time to go in and add some flowers to these stems. I'm just going in with some regular white thread, and I'm going to create 5 petals growing upwards towards the sun. And then on the smaller offshoots, I'll only be adding 3 petals. But for these petals, it's basically the same stitch as what we did for the larger leaves at the bottom of the stems. You're just going over the same area with the same straight stitch until basically you can't see the material of the dress through the stitches. It's going to look kind of 3D and kind of like a pedal, hopefully. Once I'm done stitching the petals for those white flowers, I now have to go in and stitch the pollen. I'm going to be using this neutral brown colour, and I'm going to be making a handful of French knots right where the pollen would be on a regular flower. So on the bigger flowers, I make about 4 or 5 French knots, and on the smaller ones, I just make 1 French knot. My tip for great French knots is to keep your thumb on the excess of thread as you are pulling it through the fabric to create the knot. By keeping tension, you prevent any unwanted knots in the thread, and it makes the French knots really neat and tidy. Okay, once we're done with those daisy looking flowers, I'm going to go in and start stitching some more stems. There's going to be a lot of stems in this video, and we're using the same technique for all of them, which hopefully makes this a little bit easier if you are attempting this project at home. I'm going in with the same colour that I used for the French knots on the daisies. Once I'm done stitching all of these brown stems, I'm going to go in and add some leaves to them. I'm using a slightly lighter green, and I'm not adding any flowers to these. These are just going to be leaves and stems. Again, we're using that same repetitive straight back and forth stitch that we used for the larger leaves on the other stems and for the flower petals for the white flowers. We're not using any super fancy stitches in this tutorial, so hopefully you will be able to recreate this at home if you want to. I'm not adding too many leaves to these stems. I don't want this design to look too busy, so I'm adding around 4 or 5 leaves to each of these brown stems, and I'm calling it a day for those. Once I'm happy with the leaves on those brown stems, I'm going in with one of my last stitches of the day, which is, you guessed it, some more stems. We are stitching in a lighter colour now, and we're making some much smaller stems to kind of just fill in the little areas between the flowers and the stems that we just stitched. On these little stems, I am going in and adding a couple of really tiny branches, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to add a couple of accents to those. Once you've added in all of your little mini stems, we're going to go back in and make some French knots in that same white thread that we used for the daisies. Don't forget to keep your thread taut when you're pulling these through the fabric. It really makes a lot of difference, and the French knots will be so neat and tidy. I add 2 or 3 French knots to each of the tips of the little branches that we made. I think this kind of looks like a cotton plant, and it's the perfect little addition to the little areas that needed filling. And there we have it. Here is the finished product. I really hope the giveaway winner is happy with this dress. I love how it turned out. I think I might need to make myself one. I hope that this video gave you all the tools that you might need to recreate this kind of project at home, and I highly recommend working on a Sunday floor dress if you do want to try this project yourself. They are such high quality, and I know that this dress that I embroidered will last for years and years, which is really what you want when you put a lot of time and effort into a project like this. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and maybe leave me a comment. I make lots of videos based around embroidery, shoe embroidery mostly, so if that seems like it might be up your alley, then definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks again for watching, and I really hope to see you in my next video.